LifeCents is a powerful app that has impactful experiences for our users. And what we've landed on that I think really works is to say, look, we are providing a continuum of care. We are the primary care physician for financial health.
Hello there. Welcome back to the My Future Business Show. It's Rick Nuske here. Hope you're doing wonderfully well. As always, it is great to be your host. I love this role because getting to speak with some incredibly talented people just lights me up. And I know that we're getting a lot of great feedback from the people that we're having on the show. Now, on today's show, I have the pleasure of welcoming founder, CEO, and president at LifeCents, Mr. Blake Allison. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Thank you so much, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, you and I are going to be talking about financial wellness and how businesses can provide tailored financial wellness solutions that improve their employees' financial health, empower them to make better financial decisions, and increase their productivity. So, to say that there's a bit to unpack here would be an understatement.
Well, I might have a few thoughts on that, so I'm excited for the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, look, tell us where you're calling in from today, Blake.
Yeah, I'm outside of Washington, D.C., so if anyone's familiar, Northern Virginia is right across the river, so basically Washington, D.C.
Now, prior to the call, you and I were just talking briefly, and you had a bit of a spill on the bike. Is that something you love to do? Is that a hobby of yours? Not falling off the bike.
Well, as the orthopedist said, they thought at this point in my life I'd be better on a bike. But yeah, I had a kind of a gnarly spill on my bike a few weeks ago, road rash. So nothing broken, nothing long lasting, but other than that, I do enjoy playing tennis, but I've got to get my shoulder rehabbed a little bit from playing tennis, but just love being outdoors whenever I can.
Yeah, you seem to me like you're a fairly active person. Would that be fair?
Yeah, pretty fair. I try, actually I'll steal our earlier discussion. My feet are above ground and I can keep moving, so I'm pretty happy.
2 feet and a half, but you can't complain. Now, tell me, in your location, do you get to go out much? Do you get time away from work? What's your thing after hours?
Yeah, so I do, and I think that's super important. Just generally, getting kind of breaking the routine. Or the work routine. I found there are a couple calls, like standing calls that I have that I'll get out and I can take while I'm on a walk. We've got a beautiful national park that's not too far by as well, and I'll sneak away there and spend some time outdoors and kind of clear my mind. Hopefully a couple times a week, but it turns out to be maybe a couple times a month. But still try and make it a point to keep a good balance for sure.
Yeah, I love this part of the call, Blake, because we get some context about you and what goes on behind the scenes. Because at the end of the day, business is business, but people's lives are so different, and that's what I really love talking about. Just initially, so tell me, do you enjoy a movie occasionally? And if you do, what type of movies do you enjoy?
Yeah, my if I have extra time. Well, interestingly, one of my favorite movies, and this might say a lot about what I'm about to share, but Top Gun Maverick, I think, is a great movie. And
I'm with you.
But I'm, to that end, I'm working on getting my private pilot's license, and so it's a topic that is not just a movie for me, but something that I am getting into, and I've always had an interest in. Certainly, I'm not going to be flying an FA-18, but I'll settle for a Cessna.
A Cessna. Yeah, wow. How far away are you? Have you just begun that journey?
Yeah, I've just begun. It's been kind of fits and starts. Admittedly, life kind of gets in the way a little bit, which is fine. No regrets. Interestingly, I have more hours in the air over in England than I do here, where a good friend and business partner, one of his businesses is a small aviation company where he's leasing planes to a pilot training school. And so I get to benefit from his involvement in the industry.
Of course.
Cool.
I love to wind back the wheels of time occasionally. I often reflect on my own childhood and all of the wonderful things that I can remember. Tell us about childhood for you. Did you have any fond memories that you can share with us?
Oh man, so many. Gosh, there's an interesting perspective, and we'll probably circle back around. But
Yep.
there was a bit about childhood that influenced where I am today, and my interest in personal finance and helping people achieve some sense of financial security, so they are not just so stressed all the time and worried about money. My parents divorced when I was very young. Interestingly, my biological father was a Navy pilot.
There you go.
So I have that, but I mean, gosh, I mean, I do have wonderful stories. I mean, talk about being outside. I mean, I was never indoors when I was a kid. I remember my mom had a pretty wicked whistle to get me coming in for dinner after
All
it
the
was dark.
troops.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember, like, one of the only rules that I had was that I had to be home when the streetlights came on. Did you ever have that?
Well, that's a pretty good indication. The street lights for us was my mom's whistle, and you could hear it half a mile away. So, but yeah, I mean, my brother also enjoyed tennis, and yeah, he actually played tennis before I did, and he got me into it. And I mean, we would go out. I mean, there was a period of time where we would go out for 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours, if not more, but literally just playing tennis as long as we could. And it just that really brings back such fond memories. It's something I love. Love my brother. So anytime I think of that, it really puts a smile on my face. For sure.
I tell you what, it lights me up too, because when we're kids, we don't appreciate how simple life is. And the only goal we had on the day was to hit that ball properly. But I appreciate the feedback. Now, you've touched on some pretty important people in your life, and as we go through time and we start to meet new people, we hopefully meet some influential people, some people that have really changed the course of our lives. Have you had anybody like that in your life?
Oh goodness, I've been so fortunate that over time I have been connected to amazing people, both personally and professionally. And again, I mean, I could we don't have enough time in this conversation to really go through. And there are so many standout people. My family is first and foremost so important to me, and they've always been such great supporters of who I am and my aspirations. And no one ever gave me the side eye when I told them I wanted to start a business, and they've like I think it was kind of obvious. I mean, even when I was very young, I had small businesses. I mean, as much as a business is when you're a teenager. But I used to sell mistletoe that I would forage for in the woods.
I love it.
I would go sell that around Christmas time, and
the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well.
Oh my goodness! And then I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is in the southeast part of the United States. And there was I discovered that there was a city ordinance that required houses to have the house numbers visibly painted on the curbs in front of the homes, so that emergency vehicles and first responders would be able to see that in case someone called 911, what have you. And so a friend and I put together some stencils, and we got some cans of spray paint, and we went door to door saying, "Hey, there's this city ordinance. Would you like us to take care of this for you?" And between the mistletoe quote unquote business and this curb painting business, our close rate was probably close to 100%. So that was probably not a good. It was great at the time, but it kind of maybe I had to unlearn the sales process.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, selling's one thing, but delivering is another, isn't it?
Right on.
Well, do you get up in the morning early? Are you an early riser? What's a routine look like for you?
Oh yeah, definitely an early riser. I blame my mom on that. I think 'cause she definitely is. But as I've gotten older, hopefully I'm still considered young by some. But as I've gotten older, I tend to get up a little bit earlier and earlier. I'm wide awake. I don't drink coffee. Actually, I don't drink coffee.
No, me neither.
And
You're a
but
teetotaler?
what's that?
Are
No,
you a
no tea either.
teetotaler?
Mm-mm.
No tea?
Nope, no
No,
sir.
neither. Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
I'm trying to train myself to drink tea just because I know the health benefits are so great,
Right.
and so, um, but other than that, I mean, I mostly drink water. I mean, as simple as it is, I drink water, but I'm ready to go in the morning. I have my most energy, and then, I'm a big breakfast eater. I mean, I don't know how people go without eating breakfast. If I miss breakfast, look
It's
out.
something else, isn't it? Yeah, no, you need to top up first thing in the morning, that's for sure and certain. But you seem to me like you've got a lot of discipline, and obviously with your family's background and the things that you've aspired to do and have actually achieved. There'll be a lot of startup entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs listening to this and wondering, sometimes I don't feel that disciplined. What do you do? Do you ever have those down days, and how do you deal with them?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's I think it's a reality. I mean, we're all human and we're all subject to human emotions. And I think that
Mm,
if anyone ever tries to convince someone otherwise that, oh, they're always up, they're always, everything's fine, life is,
golden.
peachy keen, golden all the time. It's just it's not a realistic view. And I think you just have to understand that there will be ups and downs. And I think with anything, it's what how you get yourself from the troughs to the peaks.
Yep.
So you're going to be down, but it's not really down. It's just it's part of the process. And I think you just have to keep going. And if you keep going, that you're going to get out of that down. You're gonna rise out of that. That whatever that moment is that you don't feel like you're at your peak. And so I think it's consistency is one of the greatest strengths anybody can have. It doesn't have to just be an entrepreneur, but the consistency leads to discipline, and I think discipline leads to progress. And what you do with that progress, or if you define that as success, fantastic. But I think that you just have to understand that. I'm going to quote. I'm going to quote. Um, oh gosh, it's slipping my name already. But
I do
the
it all the
goat.
time.
Yeah, but yeah, he the quarterback for formerly with the Patriots and the Bucks here in the U.S.
Mm,
But he gave a motivational speech at a college commencement, and he was like, "Life is hard,
get used to
you
it.
know, get used to it, right?" And Tom Brady, how could I
Tom
not
Brady, of
remember,
course.
right? It's a great speech that it's just like, look, it stinks when you sit there and you're getting up before the crack of dawn and you're going out, you're working your rear off, and your friends are eating pancakes and sleep in, they eat pancakes, and they're doing all these things, and you're getting your reps in. And I think that's an expression that is pretty good. It's like you get your reps in, you keep doing something consistently, you're getting your reps in, and then you're better equipped to use those skills when you need to, when you hit those down days.
Absolute sage advice. Thank you again for sharing. Now, there are so many things I'd love to talk about with you. One of them is your writing experience. Tell me a little bit about that. I know it's fairly extensive.
Well, it's funny that you asked that, Rick, because when I originally started my business that I have now, LifeCents, I was thinking that at the time I actually wanted to write a book. And my goal in starting a business, and this was over essentially 20 years ago when I started the business, I was thinking of, okay, I need a business that's going to generate some type of passive income so that I can focus on writing a book. And here I am 20 years later. I haven't written a book, but I have a much bigger business, and I think a more successful business than I intended at the time I started.
Yeah.
And of course, my family jokes that at this point, this amount of time that has passed, I probably could have written a trilogy or two.
I knew there was a
Um,
story behind it.
yeah, and so I think that I write well, but and I think given my interest and passion and perspective on the topic of personal finance. I feel like there's still a book in me.
Oh, for sure.
But what I've done with it, in the meantime, is there's just a lot of opportunities over time where I've written for a local newspaper. I think it was the building wealth section of a local newspaper here in DC, and that was a nice creative outlet for me. And that actually led to me being a co-host for a number of years for a radio show on XM radio.
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah, you have really done your homework.
Yes.
No stone unturned.
No, not one.
And then those experiences also have led to me being, having the opportunity to be on a TV show on a fairly regular basis. I certainly don't do the radio show anymore, and the TV show is less frequent. But I still have that outlet every so often, which is fun. So I never expected. I think some of the experiences that I have had through the work that I do are so wonderful and amazing, and I'm so grateful. And it's just kind of hard to, you never could have planned for some of these things to happen.
Well, look, the gratitude is obvious, and I think you've just outlined your first book just by virtue of what you've just shared with me. Now, for the sake of context, given, I guess, the field that you're in, tell us a little bit about your educational and professional background.
Yeah, so by way of education, I went to a public college in Virginia, James Madison University, and studied finance. Interestingly, it was more geared towards corporate and investment finance, not personal finance, although there are a lot of common concepts and principles. I mean, the basic ones like compound interest and time value of money apply to both, but it still was corporate investment finance, not personal finance. And then I did go on to get my MBA, my master's in business, and I also focused in finance, which was corporate and investment finance. But I've always had the draw to the personal finance side of things, just because that's really where I see the opportunity to help people in a different way.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Now, tell us, are you still chairman of FELA and founder?
Yeah, so that has evolved. Where we have expanded that's a nonprofit program that we spun out of LifeCents a number of years ago. And that originally, being in the DC area, you have to have an acronym for everything. And that was Veterans, Veterans Assistance for Learning, Opportunity, and Readiness. And so it's very wordy. So Valor is much better.
Much easier.
Much easier. But we realized that, veterans are one of many, communities of people who are that face unique financial challenges. And so we broadened the scope and mission of what was Valor, and we now call it Fresh Start. And so we're helping other communities of people who tend to face unique and maybe particularly challenging financial situations. So that's still active, but that also has evolved, as well into other things, and a lot of the work that we are doing with communities. We're actually working with other community organizations to assist those same audiences.
What a great initiative. Yeah, it seems to be one of those snowball effects, doesn't it? Once it starts, you can't stop it.
Yeah, and it's great. And again, my biological father being military, but also growing up in a geographically an area that heavily military focused. So friends, neighbors, everyone in the community, there was some tie to the community. So supporting the military community, veterans, et cetera, is very near and dear to my heart. So it's something that I'm very proud to be part of.
Thank you again. Now, I know that when you set up LifeCents, you obviously had a concept for it, but I guess when was the moment, the genesis of LifeCents, and was it always called LifeCents?
No, yeah. I think growing up, there is no question that I had a interest in personal finance. Way back in the day, if anybody is familiar with the Apple IIe computer, and that was a predecessor to the original Macintosh. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm really going way back. But there was a little stock trading game on there. I mean, it was just kind of a square pixels and very unsophisticated, but you could trade fake stocks and you could see how that worked. And I remember my grandfather would always read the Wall Street Journal, and I just had these memories of personal finance. And so that was maybe the seed that was planted. Studying corporate and investment finance in college and grad school kind of provided some deeper understanding of the concepts. I actually interviewed over time. I've had a number of interviews with financial advisory firms and wealth management firms. And I was given offers in multiple offers, over time, but I declined each one because when I asked about the financial advisory, the advisory aspect of it, it was crickets, because what I discovered, and this is my view, is a lot of financial advisory positions are focused on the asset acquisition, the sales side, going out and getting new clients and et cetera. And so whenever I would ask them, like, well, where is the advice coming in? Where's the time
to follow?
How is there time if there, how is there time to give guidance and advice and understand what people need? And so from my perspective, the opportunities that I was presented just were more sales positions, and that just is not what I wanted. But then I did have the opportunity to, actually, let me rewind. The earliest part of my career after college, I was a consultant where a lot of my work was with financial services companies. And at the time, I was witness to the velocity of innovation in financial products and services. Yet at the same time, I was really witness to the lack of basic financial literacy among consumers. And so I maybe said differently, with all the innovations in financial products, there was still limited impact on consumers, how people made decisions or their understanding of these products that were available to them. And so their financial literacy, their skills, their ability to make good decisions never changed. And I was like, okay, well, put a pin in that. I then worked and lived in both Munich, Germany, and Istanbul, Turkey, doing the same kind of work. And I think those were catalyzing experiences because, especially in Turkey, where they were at the time interested in modernizing some aspects of their financial services markets and bringing new products to market, like, let's say, a home loan. Well, in a Muslim country, the Sharia law, you're not able to charge interest. And so how do you create a mortgage if you're not charging interest? And so there was, again, a lot of innovation to come up with a product that simulated the way a mortgage worked, but was compliant with the local laws and customs. So great, you have this new product, and now you take it to market, and then people are saying, well, why would we want to only put 20% down when for generations, our families have been buying homes outright?
Yeah.
And so there was just a lot that went into this. And I was like, wow, it's like all this innovation in financial services, home and abroad, isn't changing consumer behavior. And so I think that was a moment where I'm like, okay, I need to drop everything, and I need to solve this problem.
Yeah. So that was the early parts of it.
It was. And so when I first started the business, it was a consulting business, and instead of LifeCents, it was actually FELA. And again, I don't do well with acronyms, because FELA was Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, and it's not sexy and it doesn't roll off the tongue. I later rebranded, obviously, to LifeCents, but it was at that time with FELA that I was getting a feel, no pun intended, for the market. Horrible. I apologize to everyone.
That's gold. Love it.
I can feel eyes rolling right now.
I love it.
But that really, interestingly, when I started that, I did not have a business plan. I did not. I said I need to understand more about that. I didn't even know what financial education was really, and so I was just going. Being in DC, I had access to so many meetings and public hearings on Capitol Hill and various federal agencies. Have commissions that are talking about financial literacy, and I went to everyone I possibly could for months and months and months, and I just absorbed, and learned as much as I could. I'm like, okay, now I have an idea of what the problem is. I understand the solutions that are out there and why they may or may not be working, and I think a lot of them were not working, and it tended to be, people being invited, into a hour-long financial education session where they cover, the session covers about 6 different topics, from budgeting and money management and credit and buying insurance and all these different things in an hour, and you walk away and it's like, what did someone get out of that and what are they going to do with it? So I realized that technology needed to be part of the solution, because there needed to be a way to scale the solution, not just, count butts and seats, pardon the expression, but, the number of people sitting in the classroom. It needed to be, so you needed to personalize, you need to be able to scale, and you needed to be able to measure. So where was someone 6 months ago, versus where are they now? And so that was the beginning of the creation of the LifeCents financial wellness app. It was the foundation of what we have today, and certainly it's evolved tremendously over the past 10, 15 plus years since its initial development.
Yeah, it's a real credit to you. There's certainly a lot that we can learn from having a look at this app, and we'll be inviting people who are on the show to visit it in some time. But I think it's important. I've gone through a lot of your details, and you've achieved some pretty significant awards. Tell us a little bit about some of the awards that you've been involved with. For example, Tech 100 Moxie Awards, etc.
Oh yeah, thank you. So, again, been very fortunate that the work that we have done, and I say we because I must include my team
of course.
In this journey. It's amazing what having the right people around you allows you, empowers you to accomplish. Another part of the conversation. But yeah, so there are some awards, whether it was for the Moxie Award is pretty interesting, where the idea of Moxie is you kind of have is it bravado, or you don't fear taking risks, or you want to do something a little bit disruptive. So that was a pretty cool award that recognized LifeCents for kind of being a standout solution that's really making an impact. And I think we have a unique approach, and I think we were recognized for having that unique approach. But that unique approach also is now a proven approach that really has worked. So I think that was a pretty cool one. LifeCents, we won it got a best gamification award, gamification platform award, because we put a lot into the user experience. For a topic like personal finance, not everyone is nearly as enthusiastic as I am. So you have to do things that will invite people in, keep them engaged long enough, to make an impact. So we've done a lot around the UI UX to make LifeCents something that people like to use and like to engage with. And when they do, even after an initial engagement, people tend to kind of stick around because they see the value to them. And so it's pretty cool. There might be a few awards that have not hit your radar even, but interestingly, LifeCents is being used by an award-winning reality TV show called Opportunity Knocks.
Wow.
And yeah, and this is pretty cool. So this is something that is new this year. This program, Opportunity Knocks, is on PBS, uh, um, and so this year is season 2, and they basically, viewers are able to access a white label version called the Opportunity Coach, as they're watching TV. So basically, the premise of the program is there are 6 families across the country who are getting professional coaching from very, very well-renowned coaches, Gene Chatsky, Patrice Washington, and Louis Barajas. And so they're working with these families, and basically at the beginning of the season, you hear from the families and the struggles that they're facing. Some people are at risk of losing their home, or they can't pay their utilities. It's going to be cut off. They can't afford childcare. And over the course of the season, you see how these families progress. And when I met the executive producer, Jamie Strayer, I was like, well, Jamie, this is absolutely amazing show. And it really is. And I just encourage everyone to check it out, because it's such a well done, professionally produced, Emmy nominated director, kind of crazy. But I said, Jamie, I'm like, if I was sitting and watching this program, I would want to have that same experience that these families are getting. And so why don't we use LifeCents as a virtual coach, which is really what it is. And so, it was kind of a, she has chocolate, I have peanut butter, and together we have this.
Wow, you got something unique. Can I just mention, early on, you just touched on something that was really relevant to the whole conversation, is that you touched on having opportunities early in your career to, basically just get leads and more people in the door, but you didn't have that component where you were serving them in a relationship, let's call it. But now you've come full circle, and now you have this opportunity through this show, like you've just talked about. It's amazing. Your whole focus is, let's call it, whole of life journey, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that we've landed on, I think we've done we're getting better at telling our story. I mean, again, LifeCents is a super powerful app that impactful, that has impactful experiences for our users.
Yep.
But sometimes I don't always tell the story well, but what we've landed on that I think really works is to say, look, we are providing a continuum of care. So if you think about healthcare and a primary care physician, we are the primary care physician for financial health. So much as people go to their doctors for checkups, the doctor's going to always kind of do baselines, what's your weight, what's your blood pressure, et cetera. And then they want to see how that, have there been any changes over time? But you also might go to your doctor because you have symptoms, and maybe you go to your doctor and you have chest pains. Well, the doctor is going to ask enough questions to determine if those chest pains are heartburn or heart attack. And you better believe that the care is going to be very different if you have heartburn versus if there's a risk of a heart attack. And that's really what LifeCents does, to say, look, let's understand, hey, you're not paying your bills on time. Why is that? Is that because your income's not stable, or is that because you don't have a system to remind you to pay your bills, or so the why behind numbers always matters. And so when we look at that continuum of care, it's like, hey, if someone needs to go to the emergency room, we can immediately connect them to community resources and say, look, you really need to talk to someone immediately, talk to a coach, talk to a counselor, get the help you need immediately. But if you're like, hey, you know what, I'd like to go on this journey. I'd like to identify goals, or I have goals and work towards those. That's like going to your primary care physician. And then what we also do, though, is connect people to the specialist, not just the emergency care, but also saying, hey, here's a foot doctor, here's the cardiologist, here's the whatever the specialist may be. And then we can check up again and be like, hey, Rick, tell us about, did everything go well with the podiatrist? Did everything go well with the cardiologist? And that's how we can show that people are making, one way we can show people are making improvements over time. And so it's that continuum of care that I think really, really works well to meet people where they are and put them on pathways for success.
It seems to me that LifeCents is people helping people. It's about building relationships and giving them guidance and direction when they need it, when they're not so sure of the answers themselves. I think you've really explained it quite well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm going to have to make sure I take notes to my own.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's this recording, that's for sure and certain. Now, I know full well that much of this depends on data. Now, how important is being a data-driven organization for LifeCents?
Yeah, so I think that's something that is fundamental to our ability to deliver an impact. So this idea of continuum of care, it is all based on and getting the right people to the right resources at the right time is all data dependent. And so, again, going to that using the primary care physician analogy, the doctor is not going to know how to help you if they don't have enough information. Again, you can walk in with chest pain, and that's such a generic statement. So they have to ask more questions. They have to have more data in order to provide you with the best care. And so I think LifeCents does that precisely, which is to say, okay, great. We understand that this is a challenge, but why is this a challenge? Or you may not be on track with savings. Why is that the case? Or you're swimming in debt. Why is that the case? Once we have that data, then we can provide the pathways, we can provide the connections, we can provide the referrals that are going to be meaningful to individuals. And so I think the data allows us to provide a level of personalization that makes all the difference in the world in terms of impact, because personal finance is personal. And so, if you don't have the data, you just can't, I think it's virtually impossible to provide good, sound guidance. Otherwise, there is a tremendous risk. And I think a lot of times it happens where financial wellness programs are very prescriptive and one size fits all in such a way that, people realize, will pick up very quickly if it's a generic, it's like, oh, you need to learn how to pay down your debt.
Yeah.
No, right?
It's vanilla.
Right.
The one thing that I've taken away from this, and there's a level of complexity that I think we've torn away, is that you have relationships even with television shows, and I can see that businesses worldwide could embed programs like this. When I'm looking on your website, I can't help but ask myself if LifeCents helps business owners align their workforce with their financial goals. Is that something that we're looking at here?
Yeah, for sure. So, employers are, one of our key, we have a lot of clients we have a lot of employers as clients for that reason, where, there are a lot of benefits to businesses to having financially healthy employees. And quite honestly, for financial services companies, there are a lot of benefits to having financially healthy customers. Think of a bank or another creditor where, if I am financially healthy, I'm going to be a lower risk, to that institution, and I'm more likely going to be paying back my loans and making payments on time, et cetera. But from an employer perspective, there's a lot of research that shows that when people are stressed, they're not productive at work. Absenteeism and presenteeism rates go up. Because people just aren't there. They're not, they're kind of checked out because they're worried about other things. And so if the number one cause of stress are financial issues, well, I think that's where financial wellness is a very powerful tool for employers to, nip that problem in the bud, and say, look, if we can help reduce stress, then our employees are going to be happier and more productive. But I also think that well, not even think, but they're, certainly, LifeCents is also used to connect employees to the employee benefits, whether it's retirement or insurances or whatever else is being offered by their employer, to connect them based on need. So, I may not understand, what short-term disability insurance is, but if through LifeCents we ask, hey, Rick, if you were to be out of work due to illness or injury, could you and your family afford that? And you're like, no, or I don't think so. And then we're like, oh, well, that's great. Well, or that's good to know, because your employer offers this thing called short-term disability. So when you sign up for your benefits at open enrollment, which is coming up in 30 days, make sure you select short-term disability. That kind of dialogue.
Scenarios based, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. This, it seems to me like, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier, Blake, and I think it's true to form, is that you're building relationships with somebody who's your financial guide standing to your right-hand side, and they're not just there to give you the vanilla version of financial wealth, wealth creation, I guess, preservation, all this sort of thing. They're there to actually help you get a result, be it through your employer or directly. So it's a pretty amazing program. But when somebody new comes along, be it a employer looking to embed it into their organisation or an individual, you have a health assessment. What is that process all about?
Yeah, so that is the first step. The financial health assessment, or what we now are calling the financial health checkup, is that initial step. It's actually based on a research-based framework to evaluate consumer financial health. So basically, there are different measures to evaluate. So if you pay your bills on time, if you have a prime credit score, if you have adequate liquid savings like an emergency fund, if you have a manageable level of debt, et cetera, there are about 8 measures. We've actually added 3, but so there's, in our assessment, there are baseline 11 measures that can be like, okay, if you are doing these things, then it's a pretty good indication that you have good financial health. That doesn't mean that your journey's over. It just means like, hey, you're doing a lot of stuff the right way. But if there are any deficiencies that are identified, that's part of that continuum of care. Well, yeah, continuum of care, and be like, okay, let's focus on these. What's most pressing, for you as an individual. So it's the baseline that starts this process of saying, okay, again, you feel like you don't have a manageable level of debt. Well, let's find out why. Or you're not paying your bills on time. Let's find out why. So that checkup, that financial health checkup, is that entry point to begin building a profile that we can respond to through, in the LifeCents app, to put you on a pathway or pathways that make sense for you.
Yeah, that's great feedback. What a wonderful call. I've taken so much from this, and it's very, I guess, it can be quite complex, I guess, from an initial standpoint when you're first introduced to this. But when people want to learn more and they want to get involved, is there a way to get some sort of access to the app just to have a look at it?
Yeah, for sure. So there are a couple. So one, just generally, I invite everyone to visit LifeCents.com. That's LIFECENTS.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to take a tour of the actual app, I would say you might want to try using this version related to the TV show called The Opportunity Coach. And so if you go to opportunityknocks.net, you'll find a link for The Opportunity Coach, and that's just a branded version of LifeCents. And so this is very timely for us, because I was alluding to some of these awards, but we are going out next week for the Artis Awards, which is the American Reality TV Award show in Los Angeles, Hollywood.
It's all happening. Goodness me.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and so it's super exciting, and fingers crossed. I mean, this is kind of a Cinderella story, because the other shows we're going up against are like The Voice, Shark Tank, and some really big brand name programs. So fingers crossed.
No, well, look, all the best to you. I wish you a successful outcome. I know you certainly deserve it, and we're going to be making sure that those links are available for the audience as well. I know one thing. Given when you talk about this topic, you light up. It's obviously your thing. You are in your zone. How does it make you feel when you see people that you're working with, either through their employers or personally? How does it make you feel when you see them getting results through LifeCents?
Oh man, honestly, Rick, you just gave me chills because I mean, it is what keeps me going every day. Full steam ahead. And it's so cliche. They say, the saying is, if you do something you love, you'll never feel like you work a day in your life. I just butchered that, but that concept. I'm very fortunate to love what I do, but I love what really motivates me is seeing that we are having an impact. And I'm like, okay, if I can impact one person, I can impact 100. If I can impact 100, I can do 1,000. And that's what keeps us going. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't want to help more people and make this app better, so it's doing it even in a better way. So I just love the feedback and the testimonials we get, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. LifeCents.com. If you're on today's call, you're looking for this sort of service, this sort of help to guide your employees, you personally, reach out to LifeCents.com or opportunityknocks.net. Both are going to be made available below this post, no matter where you see it after the call. Make sure you go check them out. And with that being said, Blake, thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, Rick, thank you so much. Great talking to you. I appreciate the time.